behind. So let's see what we can do in the remaining time. I'm sure there is a reason why Tayo Obi, who is the second panelist, is not here. I just hope she's well and all is well with her. Now, just a short prayer. Father, we thank you, Lord, for this session. We pray, Lord, for wisdom and understanding as we discuss this very important topic on issues and challenges in leading the next generation. Give us the panelists' wisdom, O Lord, and let your name be glorified, because we have prayed in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. Amen. Okay. Izu, you're welcome once again. And I'm sure you've had thoughts about this topic on issues and challenges in leading the next generation, practical insights and wisdom nuggets. So I was going to say that, yes, you're aware of the various generations, from the baby boomers to the millennials, to Generation Z, you have Generation X. Are you aware of the multi-generational challenges in the marketplace, particularly in leading these various generations and getting a special level of productivity? Leaders in the marketplace are faced now with all sorts of challenges, particularly when you have what you call the VUCA environment, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So you're having to deal with environmental issues, then you're having to deal with understanding the new generation and their expectations and harnessing what I would call their potential to achieve results in the marketplace. We would like to listen to you for about 2 minutes on the insights and wisdom nuggets, how we can all utilize their energy, their creativity to achieve results. If you notice, I'm being on the positive sides of this new generation. So what can we do to bring out the God in them? You are still also, you are familiar with them, your generation, and I'm sure you can give us some insights into how to lead them more effectively. Thank you, Izu. Over to you, please.
Okay, so thank you once again, Okshay. I will just stay here and pretend while I'm sitting on the throne like I'm fit to be here. So
No
thank you once again. Yeah, it's quite interesting. First of all, just a quick, I'm sure we all know what the generations stand and what inspires every generation. Mathematically, a generation is about 25.5 years, right? Meaning that at any given time in life, there's about 4 generations alive, active generations alive, right? And that's also technically about the same time, right, where business models change. So my background is in mathematics, so pardon me when I like to churn out numbers. First degree is mathematics. I've gone ahead to back a PMP and 3 masters, and I'm currently doing my PhD. So pardon my scientific approach to things. I think, and I'm not sure if that's hypothesis theory to back up the fact that every 25 years, the world resets itself, right? That's how I've always felt about the world. There are certain things that change the world, right? Events, places, right? People, things. So places would be world powers change every 25.5 years. Look at the dynamics, you see like there seems to be like a new fight for world dominion, right? Of course, China leading that pathway. That's in terms of, so 4 things that change everything in life is always people, places, events, right? As a matter of fact, those 3 things are really important, right? So for example, the last 5 years, events have happened that have changed the face of the world. Of course, the leader of that event will be COVID, right? So now, why am I taking time to explain this whole process? Whenever if truly that my hypothesis it can become a theory, to say every 25.5 years, the world resets itself. So it resets itself in terms of world leaders. That's macroeconomics and socio-political, right? There's always going to be a new shift, right? It also resets itself in terms of who the most, in terms of wealth, right? So if you look at what happened during COVID, you'd see that there were a new set of billionaires that made their way to top 4 of the richest men in the world, right? Before COVID, people like Jeff Bezos and all the other guys, I think Bernard Arnault, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, were not exactly in the top 4, right? You had the same guys who've been there for 25 years. Now think about people like Warren Buffett and Bill Gates and see how long they've been like the what's the word, poster boys for wealth, right? You see that it was an average of 25 years, right? From when Microsoft was created to when Microsoft was toppled by the likes of the new kids on the block, like Tesla, Elon Musk, Tesla, SpaceX, or Jeff Bezos, Amazon. Now, how does this affect us? In business, models also change. And when business models change, what happens with those business models is that new way of thinking happens. So the leader of this new school, next 25.5 years, which I would like to maybe start to count from year 2020, around that period, there's a gradient of 4 years. That's why sometimes you can say Gen Z that has characteristics of another generation, because it's like a gradient, right? The guys that stay, it's like something that happens with people that believe in zodiac signs. You can be Aries, but show certain characteristics of a Taurus because you're between that gap, right? So here's the thing. What's leading our own generation now is a short attention span. That's the fundamental. So if you talk to a Gen Z, you find out that the Gen Z is quite impatient, right? But that impatience is not just built by that's how they are genetically. It's because of the things they're exposed to. So don't forget that they were born into the Snapchat generation, the Twitter generation, I wouldn't even say the Instagram, where if you look at the whole demographic, you see how things have changed drastically. So here's the point. The things that, if you understand what is influencing why people act the way they act, it's easier for you to change that dynamic. So I work with a lot of Gen Zs. I run a management consulting firm. 80% of people in my workforce are supposed to be like the top of their food chain. Guys in their 19, 20, 21, 22, who all made 4.5 CGPA, meaning that literally everybody on my team made the first class, well, apart from me, right? And I see that even in their intelligence, they seem to still exhibit certain personality traits, right? So, and here's the problem. Those guys are not just making their way to your workforce. They're also making their way to your customers, right? And they're also making their way, at some point, they'll get into the boardroom, right? Because they will grow from bottom to top. So I've come to the conclusion that they seem to all have something in common. So my focus is on Gen Zs because these are the people I know pretty well, right? I work with them all the time. They have certain things that they all have in common, whether they're the smartest or the average, whether they're from upper middle class homes or they're from middle class homes. They all seem to think alike, right? And what's that thing? First, they seem to seek convenience more than anything else. 2, they seem to be impatient. Then they seem to seek for excitement. These 3 variables have paid constant attention. Now, the convenience is, people that work in banking will tell you this. Some of these guys are showing up to ask for $850K a month, and they're giving you terms like they want to work from home. That's convenience right there. So I've come to the conclusion that they are lazy, they are crazy, they are busy. At least that's the joke I'll crack to myself for me to manage them better. Say, look, an average Gen Z is lazy, he's crazy, he's busy. Not from a derogatory way, or from a derogatory perspective, so because they are lazy, what can I provide for them that will keep them? So because they are lazy, I think of convenience. So early days of Xavier, I figured out something. Our employee turnover was getting really high. And then I realized that why did these guys get a job and then they leave in the first 4 or 5 months? And then I realized something. They are not built for that Lagos hustle we are used to. Wake up by 5:30, stay in traffic, to traffic, to the bus stop by 6, right? Stay in traffic for 1 hour, get to the, it burns them out. So what did I do as an antidote? These guys all seem to be lazy. And this was before COVID. We started work from home even before COVID started. So we were one of those people who were ready for COVID before COVID happened. It had nothing to do with COVID. In 2018, 2019, I think I got married in 2017, 2018, and I had to move houses. And one of the criteria for moving houses was that it was going to be an estate that had the opportunity for me to have another office. So my house, till now, my house and my office is like 2 streets away. I literally walked back home to be in this, walk from office to be in this office. So here's the thing. Put this in mind to manage your own expectation, because I think for we who are not from that generation, we're not managing the expectations. They are lazy, provide them with convenience. So the 2 convenience I did was they can work from home. So we created a home office where they work and go home on weekends. I realized that drastically stopped employee turnover. The second thing I noticed was if we could provide very basic amenities while they were working from, right? So we bought like washing machines, tried to make sure that somebody comes cook and put, this is literally what someone who can relate to say, these people are literally spoiled. But then what I realized was that their productivity went high up there. So that's it for convenience, right? So we would do free meals, and we still do free meals 4 years after. We do free meals. And I did the maths one day, and I realized that it's actually cheaper for us to do free meals, because that way we cut out 1-2 hours of them taking breaks because they need to go out of the office to get food, right? We took out 2 hours again of them commuting to work and back. Then they didn't now have to do 9 to 5. And then I replaced I shared my office into 2, and I took out the corporate chairs and I put sofas there. And we created a ground rule that says sleeping is no longer an offense in the office. True story. So when you're tired, we have a rule. When you're tired, you sleep. So you see people at 10, you come to office at 10 a.m. and some people are literally lying down on the couch and they're sleeping. But guess what? These are very destructive thoughts. Funny enough, it had no correlation negatively to productivity. I realized that 1 hour nap that they take, when they resume, right? They're fired up to get things done. That's for convenience. Remember, 3 variables. They are lazy, so we provided convenience. Something else was they were crazy bunch of people. Pardon my French, calling them crazy, but that's how I like to look at them. They live and survive on excitement. Don't forget that the Snapchat guys, right? If it's not exciting, they burn out. So once in a while, we'll do crazy stuff in the office. Oh, we have games afternoon. You know, last week we walked from the beach. We literally all packed ourselves in 2 cars and we went to the beach to work. Right? All of you bring out your laptop, bring out the Wi-Fi. And then, of course, the last one is crazy, lazy, and busy. Busy, how can you shorten time? Yeah, so I think that's my solution.
Okay. Thank you, Izu. Thank you for that, I would say, quite unusual approach to getting the best out of this generation that we've spoken about. Now, for a company that does not have all these facilities, what principles do you think the company should use to ensure that generation is committed? You spoken of them being lazy and in a positive way, and you found a solution to it. What about those companies that do not have those kind of facilities? What can they do by simply understanding the orientation of this generation?
Okay, so whenever I've been greeted by this commission all the time, I don't think, first of all, it's an expensive experiment to do. We still pay rent, we still have it's still a flat, it's space management once again. So let me give a good example. When I say this, they live in the office, people would assume that, oh, you must have a really big penthouse type of house where people stay. But then again, because they're also very imaginative, what we did was make sure that the temperature is good, right? Make sure that the lighting is good. You can do double deck bed, right? So that way they can have more people. right? So sometimes not an expensive experiment to do, but yes, if you're in a situation where you can't even afford that, I think there could always still be a creative way to do it. So once again, if you keep that variable in mind, they're lazy, they're crazy, they're busy. There are different levels to convenience, right? So while you cannot afford maybe free meals, for example, right? There could be creative stuff you can do. You maybe discount on, right? I know a client, for example, who pays people twice a month. It's the same amount, but he pays them in two weeks interval, right? Because once again, he would always explain and say the attention span is low, right? They live, and I don't know if we know that younger people are thinking ownership. The way they think of ownership is from how we think of ownership. Baby boomers, millennials don't think of ownership like Gen Zs do, right? Funny enough, a Gen Z wouldn't mind not having a car. If you ask a Gen Z, should I buy you a car or should I give you 2 years of free Uber, right? They'll take 2 years of free Uber, sometimes 1 year of free Uber. An average Gen Z is not thinking of what we are thinking. Our parents' epitome of have arrived was to build their own house. I engage Gen Z. Those guys literally can live in shortlets for 2 years, right? They can live it. So once again, I think we can be very creative with it, right? So while you can't afford that, you can say, okay, guys, once in a week, right? We can actually walk from wherever you want to walk, and rotate it, right? We can walk from the beach. I don't think walking from the beach is an expensive experiment. I don't think it is, right? And don't forget that Lagos, every coastal line in Lagos is a beach. So it might not even be the most premium beach. It might be the most basic. And I'm talking about on the weekend. Funny enough, most weekdays, beaches are free to get in. So I think we can be more creative around it, right? People just want to have fun. Young people just want to have fun, right? So I think those are some of the more creative ways to be able to drive that agenda.
Okay.
Always remember.
Okay, so Izu, if I understand you well,
yeah,
what you're saying essentially is that the Gen Zs, they like their freedom, they mind remote work, they like to do things the way they want to do it. You don't tell them exactly what you want to do. You can assume your way of life is what is convenient for them. They don't like the hassles of maybe traffic and all that. That's also, and of course, the owners or the leaders should be creative also in finding solutions that would meet their own needs. Okay, but in terms of their productivity, what do you think a leader can do to enhance their productivity continuously? And what do you think about their ability to learn and be receptive to new ways of doing things?
Okay, so I would have also added that they don't like rules, right? They don't like rules. They don't like rules, especially cumbersome rules, right? So one of the things I learned is we don't do employee handbooks. We don't do employee handbooks because they don't even read it, right?
Okay.
Matter of fact, you want to hire them and give them the impression that you're big on documentation, right? You might be able to, you might have succeeded in giving them a scare, right? So here's the thing. What we do is we have something called basic ground rules. So that replaces employee handbook. We have 7, we call it 777, right? So 7 productivity rules, so 7 management rules, and 7 shop floor rules. So one of the things I've realized is if you can make even the rules interesting for them, right? Okay. Easier for them to. So I think for productivity, one of the things we have learned to do, for example, is we have one of the things we do is the first thing is that we let all of them choose who their compliance person would be, right? So once again, they're very democratic in their thought process, right? So okay, there are 7 of you in a team. You guys should choose one person who will be in charge of following through on all of you guys. So they choose, and then that person they choose decides on how he wants to follow through on them. So fun way to do it is, hey guys, we're going to have a penalty rule, a penalty grid. For example, you must send your daily reports. If you don't send your daily reports, right, you are going to do this. Maybe lunch would be on you.
Okay.
So fun and exciting ways. If it's not a game to them, if it's not a play to them, right, you might lose them. So at the end of the day, right, when they fail task, right, funny enough, they have an ownership to that task because they all agreed on the rules. We all made the rules together. So let me give a good example. Last week, we went to the beach to walk from the beach. The whole day, we stayed at the beach, walked from the beach. I think I posted pictures on Instagram. Funny enough, you post the pictures on Instagram, people start to DM you in their generation saying, oh, this looks like the kind of place I'd like to walk in. Are you guys recruiting? Right? But here's the thing. The money we use, the part of the money we used to do that came from penalty. Right? So once again, those are the fun, exciting ways. So make it fun, right? Create ground rules, eliminate all of those cumbersome principles and employee handbook. Let them own their rules. When they fail the task, let one of their own go for them, right? And everybody vibes into that. That's my own principle, and that's what has worked for me. It might work differently for other people, but it's always worked.
Okay. Now, sorry, for everybody here, the audience, please feel free to come up with questions for Izu. I'm going to ask another question now. As in terms of projecting to the future, do you think another 5 years down the road, what do you think you'll have to do differently, rather, another 5 years down the road? For instance, some of them may want to get settled down, have a family and all that. What would you have to do differently? And what is the role of technology in terms of this Gen Zs, in terms of enhancing their performance at work?
Okay, that's 5 years is too long because we're having that challenge right now. So about 4 of our guys left last month, and there was a trend. All 4 of them jackpot.
Okay, yeah.
I didn't even know there was a thing in certain schools in the US where people that made a 4.5 CGPA first degree can move straight to do PhD without an MSc. I didn't even know that was a thing. These guys seem to know all the hacks on the internet to get schools for scholarship. How do you skip masters to do straight your PhD because they know those hacks? As a matter of fact, I noticed that they went Harriet Tubman on me. You know the Harriet Tubman principle, like this lady who escaped slavery and doesn't just escape and go to a new town. She comes back to carry every other person there. So the first guy that went showed the next guy how to go, and then the next guy how to go, and the next guy how to go. But you know, as funny as it is, I'm still smiling because once again, it's important to let people go, especially when it's for their best interest. But here's one thing that's been amazing, and I want to suggest it to everyone. We have 2 years ago, when this crisis started, where you have them and they leave. They're not even leaving for another company of a competitor. They are always leaving to do their masters. And we can understand why. They are smart, they are very well exposed, and then they have the opportunity and the scholarship. So what we did was we used technology to create something we called Onboard X. So Onboard X is an actual platform on the internet that we created. One of our tech guys, they were tech guys who were working with us as management consulting intern. And she could write code. And she created a code and said, look, people come and people go. 2 years, they've gone. 6 months, they've learned. 1 year, they've gone. So, and every time I watch you guys do onboarding, I'm also about to leave. Have you thought about onboarding, automating your onboarding process? So she created like a Coursera for us, like a Udemy for us. Like you can actually check it out. It's called onboardx.ng, right? Where the best guy in each department created an SOP for everything that he does, all this activity, right? So for example, the guy in client service defined all his activity. Activity 1 is client engagement and presentation. 2 is maybe business development, right? Business plan, mind mapping, strategy. 3 is event. Create all the activities there, create all the SOPs, and then get an iPhone, shoot videos for each of the SOPs. edit the videos and turn them into courses and put them on the internet, right? And password each of them and create an algorithm, true story, right? Now, people come in, right? And in like 2 hours, they understand everything like a course and they get a certificate. So what we've done is when you're about to leave, no problem, right? You can leave, right? And then the next person who is coming, right, just takes the course that you left behind. So I think technology, you can't stop them from going. What you now need to do is make it seamless for the next guy who's coming. And then I created an alumni community. We have a WhatsApp group of 60 people who have worked in Xavier in the last 5 years. 70% of them are no longer in Nigeria, but it hits my spirit that these guys are leaving. They will still be back in 6, 7, 8 years. May they not come back and meet us where we are. By the time they come back, we would have become big enough to have them come back as directors in the company, maybe with stock options and not employees. So that way, they are not going to be our competitors. They are going to come back as our partners, and we'll keep in touch with them. Every once a month, I go on Zoom. Hey, where are you? Are you in Switzerland? Are you in France? Are you in the UK? Let's all have meetings. How are you doing? What are you doing? One of them was saying, oh, have you thought about having a branch in US? I talked to my professor in the university. I'm doing my PhD, and he likes what we are doing. And he says, oh, we can have like a sister company in the US. So I think you can think collaboration when they leave long term, right? One of them left to do our ACCA in the UK. And I said, wait a second, when you come back, have you thought about coming back to run an accounting firm? We're not an accounting firm, management consulting firm, but you know we're sisters because we do complementary business. So maybe when you come back, you're going to set you up. Maybe you can set you up together. You own 50%, I own 50%, and then we can start to think of owning like a conglomerate. So 2 things, onboarding must be seamless and automated. And secondly, keep in touch with them. When they leave, they don't have to be frenemies. They don't have to be frenemies.
Well, I must compliment you on that thought process, because that thought process includes you're looking at opportunities rather than the limitations. You're looking at what we can do together, and you're absolutely correct. The world is getting smaller, and it's not the physical location that matters anymore. You can collaborate with people who are almost like ambassadors of Xavier. You can work with them, and it's a good thing you're doing. And that's very thoughtful and creative. I don't know if there are any questions for Izu, comments. Please just indicate. Douglas, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Hi, Izu. Great presentation. I mean, I caught it late, but the last points you made, I think hit the nail on the head. Because I recall the last time when I was on, I was talking about most of the young generations. They have this mind of equity-based thinking, right? They ownerships. They want to have ownership of something, if not of everything, but they want to have ownership. They want to feel like they are part of it. And the thinking you just described about your staff coming back after having gotten some training in the US, coming back and you now collaborating with her is amazing, because what that does, you help her with the foundation of setting up, but she's bringing her like her intellectual ability and what she has learned. So you understand, and is able to now help you both actually cater to a totally different market, or a different market that is closely associated with what you're already used to. That expands also your portfolio in general. And I agree with that. And I guess that's what one of my bosses, when I proposed to him, didn't see really. But yeah, nice one. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Douglas. Thank you for that. Chukuma, please go on.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Yeah,
Good
thank
evening.
you, Izu, for bringing this refreshing perspective to managing young people at the workplace, managing Gen Zs, and even the Gen X who are getting into the workplace already. What you say is absolutely correct about the fact that the workplace, the way we know it, has changed and changed for good. I know quite a couple of people between the ages of 20 and 26 who work from home completely for companies way outside Nigeria, but they all live in Nigeria. They work from home and they earn in dollars and earn very good amount of money. Quite a number of them, and they don't see their employers. They are not supervised by anybody. They wake up by 9 o'clock and start work. Some of them wake up by 12 because that's when their home country is up. And some of them work at night and they sleep during the day. Now, for an average employer in Nigeria, will find that amusing. But even here in Nigeria, no one or two who work for companies in Nigeria where they go to office only once a week, and everything is done from home. So we just have to rethink how the workplace has evolved and what the younger people would. And you've done a fantastic job with your people. Now, the issue of turnover, it's a reality of our time. We now have global citizens. It's not unlike when we were graduating where you just find a job and you stay. No, the opportunities to move around the world now is immense. And they like to work from anywhere. And so, yes, if you speak to them and there is a negative thought from them, it's because of fear. And that's why I said last week, we shouldn't approach them with fear. Most of them are very smart. Most of them know what they want. If you could just give them a listening ear to express themselves, like what you do, let's create these rules together. Let's do this together. You listen to them. They will do it in front of you. Whatever you wanted, they will do it in front of you. You don't have to have all the ideas. They will give you the ideas if you pay attention. So when next any of us have opportunity of talking to the young people below the ages of 25, be ready for a pushback not in a negative way. They'll look you in the eyes and tell you, I disagree with you. It's not because they're being disrespectful. That's just who they are. Their opinions matter to them. And they will say the way it is. You may not like it, but that's what it is. And so the earlier we also begin to accept this as realities of our time. I mean, most of us who have children, you know how they speak to you. Not in a disrespectful way, but they are assertive. And so they're not just assertive in your house. They're actually assertive in the workplace and in the social place. And so they will work from anywhere, like I said before, and they also know what they want and they're assertive. So the future is bright for them. I always say that they had far more opportunities than we did when we graduated. And they're exploiting the opportunities because the tools to do that is available now. The internet is there. It's the biggest university ever, and they're using it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Chukuma. Thank you. And sincerely, these are all positive things that Izu has brought up. Thank you, Izu. Monisola, you have a comment?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Izu, I must say, I'm glad I'm seeing you again and far, beyond my imagination. Thank you for your talk. And I must sincerely say that your presentation has changed something about the way I think, mainly at the home front. Because, at home, I have some young people, and I've been feeling that, are these people disrespecting me? Am I having issues with them? Is it that I don't understand how to communicate? I can really see the gap. But with your presentation, I think I can adjust my thinking now. I really understand kind of where these guys are coming from, what their expectations are, especially when you talk about convenience. My nature, I just believe if I say, do this thing now, I expect you to do it now. If you are not doing it now, we can't work together. But I see from your talk, I guess I need to really look inwards and see how I can adjust my style so that I can get better results. I really appreciate the talk. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Monisola, for that comment. And I know it's a big compliment from Yuzu. Yuzu, that means your objective has been achieved because it's a mindset change. I mean, the transform minds is about transforming minds. Also, in a way that will glorify God. And that is what we are doing here. Because most of us, the more we understand the people we are dealing with, and we can help them grow, with their own goals and vision in life, we're also glorifying God. I don't know if there's any other comment. I think there's another person. There's a second. I think any other person, because this hands have been raised before.
I raised my hand again.
Oh, okay, Chukuma, you raised your hand again. Sorry, go on, please.
Yes. Okay, so I wanted to talk about something that frightens all of us, really, which is drug and drug abuse amongst the young people.
Okay.
Many of them do not view the drugs the way we do. Quite a number of people in that age range, between the ages of 18 and 20, do not see anything wrong with weed.
Yeah.
Quite a number. And then normal, everyday people. But if you have them around you, have an honest, be ready for the shock that you receive. Have honest communication about drugs. They will tell you what is available, what's available in your locality that you're not even aware of. They will mention it. So have honest communication and don't be judgmental. Don't go, listen to them. If you can, if you have the heart, listen to them. You will gain insights about what is available and what they use that you don't know. And if you do and you understand it, it becomes easier to chip away at, those thoughts and how they view it. It becomes easier. But if you go with a sledgehammer, they block you off. You don't hear anything. You live with them, you don't know anything that goes on. And so drug abuse is real in our society, with us, with our children of anywhere between 18 and above. We should just have an open mind and let them talk. Let them know that you can listen to them and you will get so much insight, and God will give you wisdom on how to handle it. But drug abuse is a major challenge in that age bracket. Thank you.
Thank you, Chukuma. Thank you. Incidentally, sorry, okay, please go on.
We still have time?
Well, time is really running out, but let's listen to you. Go on.
Okay, it's good you brought this up because it's one of those conversations people don't want to have, right? And so this is what I've learned to do. I've always said as you grow in your company, right? Businesses have operational management and then board. As you grow in your company and you delegate, don't delegate your hiring that much. So I try to, at any point, be the first person they talk to when they're trying to get into the team, right? So I let them do their own interview. So first of all, there's a rule that if you're leaving, because our employee turnover is high, and honestly, I don't even feel bad about it anymore. First, it's not a Xavier problem. It's a general problem, like Mr. Chukuma said. And then second, for people we hire, right? If you're 22 and you made first class, you're aspiring. But when they're leaving, we have a rule. You must give us a month notice. Then we always give you offer of first refusal to give us 3 people that will replace you, because we realize something. Those guys that made first class know people that also made first class, right? The guys in Babcock, for example, I have 2 girls who are from Babcock, very brilliant. One read anatomy. She says, look, I can get you 20 people who we used to do night reading together, who all made first class. So I let them. So when they come to have an interview, so about the drug issue, I've moved from shying away from it to asking directly. So I'm going to say this bluntly as it is. When I'm interviewing you, you know what I ask? So what do you smoke? Not do you smoke? Not do you smoke? So what do you smoke? And then you hear them say, well, do you smoke cigarettes? Do you smoke? Now, first things first, I want you to be as vulnerable. Then I not tell you that, oh, by the way, we have home office here. I'm not your father. I don't care what you've been doing before now, but you can't smoke while you're here. You have Mondays to Fridays. When you leave, it's not my business what you do here. Funny enough, we have someone that stays in the office who plays like an elder brother figure, right? So I know with that type of person, you don't even have this kind of thing. But here's what I realized is, and Chukuma was really right. When you ask them they didn't see that type of conversation coming. Usually they're off balance to be open enough to have very funny, very weird conversations, and we're really right. Nobody wants to talk about it. There are more marijuana smokers by a large margin than cigarette smokers in Nigeria, by a far large margin, right? So, but my conviction is, if you must inspire them, take it slow and steady, one step at a time. It's very theoretical for you to think that they've smoked for 2 years, 3 years, because they're working for you, they're not going to smoke. First of all, let's start with the rule of, while you're here, you're not allowed to first. Then if I hang around you long enough, you get to start to see the reason why it's not a good use of your time or your resources. And at the most, even if you fail with all, right, you would have at least done some level of impression on these people. But there's a pandemic and there's an epidemic going on and nobody wants to talk about it. It's the fact that there are actually a lot of people who are on something these days. And I don't know why no one's talking about it, because people don't know how deep that issue is. So I think for me, and another thing I've come to do is, I'm also lucky because of the type of people we hire. So don't forget, they're not the average young people. But even in that intellectualism, some of them are like that. So I don't have that. I don't have them by a large margin. So I can't say I have a lot of experience around young people who are on drugs. By the fact that you are a straight A student, you're probably not, you don't have that type of time. But here's another thing I also have come to see. CVs don't tell much about people these days. I hire by looking at your social media handle. And that's something that old HR or older generation people don't put into cognizance. If I look at your last 10 posts, it tells me a lot more about yourself than a 1 hour. And I'm not talking about LinkedIn, where everybody comes and put their best life there. If you look at their Snapchat, you look at their stories, it gives you an insight on who they are, usually. So I think HR guys have got to change the algorithm of how they hire. I'm really more concerned about where you grew up, your social media handle. It's a major variable. And then these days, I let them take personality tests. I'm big now on temperament more than even personality. You know, there are two variables. Temperament are product of your nature, right? Temperament are product of your nurture, right? So sanguines, I noticed something. Cholerics are on a natural high by design. And I'm not trying to stereotype or do prejudice, but I noticed something, that there are certain temperaments. Like, for example, I noticed that the guys who are quiet in real life, right, are actually the ones that make the most noise on social media, strangely. And I don't know if there's a data. This is my own observation, that if I hold it long enough, it becomes a hypothesis, maybe it becomes a theory someday. So I noticed something, that those guys who are extroverted are on a natural high that don't require stimulants. It's those ones that are quiet and are detached. They are the ones we should actually be afraid of more. Yeah, that's my view.
Wow. It's been very educative and enlightening, Izu. Thank you very much. And I'd like to just, before we round off, just take off, I think he says about these drugs issue that Chukuma brought up. If I can recall what he said now, he said you sort of practicalize, or you do certain things, they watch what you do. You ask them questions on what you did smoke. But of course, over time, they know what is acceptable and what's not acceptable. And this is bringing you to Transform Minds' reason for existence. Transform Minds, obviously, at some point in the future, we see leaders who actually live the values that we are projecting in the workplace, because we see business itself as ministry. Of course, we see business as, Transform Minds as producing leaders who have values that can drive the society, their businesses, to what God wants it to be, and it's about glorifying God in the marketplace. So if a Transform Mind person is leading an organization or is working somewhere as a leader, his attitude, his behavior, and all that will reflect kingdom principles. And that in itself would transform people to the best they can be. From the spiritual perspective, what are your thoughts?
Okay.
In terms of leading this generation, Gen Zs.
I wish you could put that.
Sorry, not even Gen Zs and other groups of people. Because now we are going to transform minds, reason for existence. Yeah, go on, please.
Okay, no, I wish you could rephrase or put it in another context. What's my view on?
Okay, let me put it this way. There's almost like a dichotomy between spirituality, as in people speak about spirituality in terms of doing certain things the church preaches and preachers preach over the weekend, and people go into the workplace and they don't live those principles, or better still, they don't talk about it, or better still, they don't amplify what they've learned. So we in Transform Minds, obviously, like you're aware of, we've tried to educate ourselves by looking at how the marketplace can also be built, what we do can also be influenced by kingdom principles, so to speak. So over time, we are hoping that products or members of this organization would also be recognized from our Father. Okay, do you belong to Transform Minds? And that's to do with spiritual principles, basically principles that will glorify God. I know the issue of drugs and some of these things here may be a bit sensitive. Is there any perspective you have on the issue of spirituality? Because even the younger ones, for some of them, they may just probably dwell more on science and logic and some of those things and argue with you, might even argue on orientation, sexual orientation or this orientation. And if you get into that argument with them on feminism, for instance, they might just get into a conflict of some sort. So I'm just wondering, how should we approach these issues of spirituality and other ideals that we may, as the older generation, find very relevant for success in life? Is it clear?
Yes, absolutely. So honestly, I like to, when it comes to spirituality and religion, if I'm to be very honest and direct, I honestly think that is one of those very questions I don't usually have with my members. I also noticed that, so if I find someone who's off the tangent on different things, right? So let me say spiritual orientation, and that's also another thing that nobody likes to talk about these days, right? They all start off as what is relatable to then what's not relatable, and they have like what I like to call it holding, let's say hold it or transit brands before they come out straight. So you hear stuff like, oh, I'm alt-a, or I'm queer, or I am what's the word? They have a very funny implementation. So this is what I've learned to do, right? Especially even if someone shows up and maybe has a atheist perspective. And honestly, I can relate because I think I've told my story several times. I had question marks at different parts time in my life, but I've also realized something. And I'm not just saying this because Uncle Sheyi is here. Uncle Sheyi is one person who I feel like if I didn't meet at any point, at the point I met Uncle Sheyi, I probably would have been a full-blown free thinker. But I also learned something. There was a transition, right? So I've learned something that, and this is inspired by Uncle Sheyi, right? Rather than trying to get them to believe in what you believe in, right? Why don't you first of all show them, right, something that they can relate with first. So the first time I started to come to Potter's Outreach, for example, I wasn't coming to Potter's Outreach. I was coming for the Tuesday. Actually, I don't know if you remember when we used to do the Tuesday leadership thing.
Yeah. Yes.
Right? That was something I could relate with, right? I had just found this author called John Maxwell, and then I think for months or even years we had this John Maxwell. So that's something I've come to realize that, for example, I wish I could say that we're that type of organization where we're very spiritual, and I wish that someday we will become. But one of the things I like to do is if I spot an error, right, on how someone thinks, like very, very off the tangent, right? So, for example, there was this one time we had a lady in the office who of course, she said there's a rumor several times. I've heard there's a rumor when they have their side talk. Sometimes I just sit in the general space and I listen to them. And then one time we had a question and she just clearly told us how our perspective in terms of orientation. And that day when I'm going home sometimes, I just tell someone to grab the car and I take a walk. And then that particular day, I told her, let's go for a walk, right? And I wanted to understand where that whole thing was coming from. So I think, first of all, we need to first listen to these people first, right? Listen to them first. And I think there's too much preaching going on everywhere, left, right, and center. And these people don't do well with information overload, right? So if you ask me, I'm not in the best position right now to be able to say we've transformed people drastically on their spirituality. It's 6 o'clock. But one thing I've learned to do is understand why they think the way they think, right? And one of the things I've learned is that most of them come from homes where they've already been overloaded with a lot of these things we're trying to tell them. So we have to find alternatives. And that's why I wish there was more Potter's Lounge, more leadership sessions, and those type of things. I really wish I asked Uncle Sheyi before now if we could even invite them for this session. If at any point we're going to have a part 2, all right? I like us, because I didn't know if it was a closed group type of conversation. I'd like us to have them come in, right? And just listen, because for me, that's the transition. If I invite them, for example, to a church program, I know my people, they won't show up. But if you tell them to show up in an event that is maybe exciting and intellectual, they will show up. Then on their own, let their curiosity lead them to, oh, who is Uncle Sheyi? Oh, are you saying Uncle Sheyi is like an elder and he's this cool? I think it's a better approach, right? Than I don't think flyers and tracts and inviting people to church in this era is as, and I don't know how we gauge these things, but I think we need to find a way to measure whether they are actually effective, right? I don't think they are in the, for this management, call it CAC. The customer acquisition cost is higher than the benefit cost ratio don't add up, basically. The customer acquisition cost is too high, if you ask me, right? So I'm hoping somebody can take up that intervention. I'm not there yet to take up that intervention, but there's a definite need. There are more young people who don't go to church by a far margin than those who go to church, right? And if there's a transit, that would be great. I still had discussion with Bolaji, I think the pastor, but didn't work for Harvesters. And this was the conversation I was having with them. And I said, if we realize that there are more people, maybe we need more what God cannot do, does not exist type of vibe, like an Instagram-led crusade, but maybe not a crusade, right? Maybe we want to see what we were doing back then in Potter's Outreach with the leadership thing, a virtual version, right? Maybe we want to hear, that's why, in my own opinion, people like Pastor Pojo and things like Platform, right, have reached more people than any other thing has. And that's because it's a religious person having non-religious conversation first. I think that's where it needs to come from. Over to you, sir.
Wow. I think we have to really round off. And Izu would have another version. And you are free to invite the younger ones. And I must say to you, this is not by coincidence. I was in Babcock this morning, and I was invited to speak about workplace ministry and what we should be doing for the new generation. And all of the things you've said are right on the spot, very relevant. In fact, I gave one of the Gen Zs, I gave him an assignment yesterday in preparation for my talk this morning. I'll send it to you. I mean, I wouldn't post it. I said, what are the expectations of the younger generation in terms of the workplace? What do you expect to be given? And some of the things you've said, he expressed. But I think I'll post it because he did a survey, but I'll give you a quick survey, and you'll be amazed. Within 3 hours, he had interviewed quite a number of them and gave me 10 points, which I used in my talk this morning, and they were all amazed because this guy must be what? Maybe 23? I don't know. But he's one of those serious-minded persons, just like Izu, when Izu was much younger. He was always asking questions. And what we've done is a member of Transform Minds, by the way, is to tell him to come to Transform Minds. So he's leading the younger ones, and even the Babcock students also. There's a forum platform we set up by God's grace, some of them will join through a member of Transform Mind, who is the chaplain of Babcock University. So you're absolutely correct. Even this morning, we spoke about several things the church is not doing and needs to do better, particularly in multi-denominational settings. And to understand, I don't want to repeat what you've said. I know this is repeated. So, Izu, by the way, congratulations. I'm sure someone here has been touched by your reference to not using CVs and so on and so forth, interviewing. Maybe someone here needs to employ people. We'll probably contact you. I don't know. It just occurred to me that this is an interesting perspective that people don't really talk about. Everybody still look at CV for interviews. But you said something that's very important. You look at their social media handles and, you decide, you can look at the temperament, the character, and also and so forth. So thank you very much. I think we have to round up at this stage. Time is really far gone. Next week, we'll continue on Tuesday, 5 o'clock. And hopefully we can get back Izu with the young generation representatives to attend this program and make their contribution. So Izu, get ready. We shall call on you. And I haven't forgotten your talk about disruption that you're also interested in, but the latest will do. So let me just round up here. May God bless you all and keep you. And until we see you again by God's grace next week, take care and God bless. Closing prayer, please. Ebon, is Ebon still with us? Can you give us a closing prayer? Ebon.
I'm here. Good evening, sir. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for today's session. We thank you for the knowledge shared. We thank you for opening up our mind. We thank you for being transformed even with the session. Thank you for life and good health so far. Thank you for the grace upon the speaker, the grace of the organizers, and the grace upon us all here. We humbly ask that as we proceed towards the end of the week, you cover us with the blood of Jesus. Grant us your direct, grant us your love, show us mercy in all our endeavors. Bless the work of our hands continuously, and may we, at the end of the day, be representatives of the kingdom. In the name of Jesus Christ, we pray.
Amen. Sorry, just 1 second, please. 1 second, please. Thank you, Ebon. 1 second, please. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Demola Adeniran, Ruth Wigwe, Obarido Okochi.
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you for participating. And if you don't mind, we can add you to the group so that you can receive notifications directly. Don't mind. Is anybody? I've said Tunde here. Maybe that's Tunde Banjo. I'm not sure. Tunde.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Tunde, good to see you. And yes, I think that's about it. Demola Adeniran. Yeah.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're most welcome.
Enjoy the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Demola. Thank you. All right. See you guys. We have a prayer session tomorrow at 5. If you can join, God bless you. For Tuesday next week, we have another mind renewal session. 5 o'clock. Thank you. God bless you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone.